welcome. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Jamie Mattioli. I'm the corridor manager for the Mendocino Highway 1, the coastal projects there. So my small group of project managers, we are responsible for managing projects on Men 1. And just want to welcome you and thank you for joining and attending. We have a lot of people here tonight. I don't know what the count is, but we have a good number from Caltrans and a really good number from the community. And we highly value engagement. Richard's going to talk about that. And so your attendance, your attention here it's an important part of engagement for us, and we're really grateful. So we thanks for your attention. And what we're going to do here is Richard's going to give an opening statement, and after that we'll have a presentation by our new project manager, Karen Coonrod. And then for the rest of the meeting, probably 30 to 40 minutes, maybe even more, we're just going to answer questions. We'll have some conversation with the live audience here. So first, before we get to that, I'd like to ask Manny, would you please cover the logistics for tonight's meeting? Manny.
Thank you, Jamie. As Jamie stated, my name is Manny Machado, and I'm the Public Information Officer for actually Lake and Mendocino counties. Before I turn the meeting back over to Jamie Mattioli, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items for this evening's open house. Now, attendees are in listen-only mode during the presentation. A Q&A session will follow the presentation. If you have a question or comment, please raise your hand so the host and co-host are notified. Your question or comment will be heard in the order of hands raised. If you are dialing into the open house meeting, you can use *3 to raise your hand. During the Q&A session, there will be 3 minutes allotted for each attendee's question or comments. If you have a particular question on a slide, please note the slide number so the appropriate project development team member can respond to your question. Also note, if you're participating in this virtual meeting, please be advised that it is being recorded. The recorded presentation will be shared on the Jack Peters Bridge webpage and via Facebook and YouTube page. First, with the Title VI statement, Caltrans ensures that no person in the state of California is excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or otherwise subjected to discrimination in Caltrans programs, policies, procedures, activities, and services on the grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. We also invite those in attendance to take a public participation survey. You can find a link to the survey in the chat section on your computer. Here's the agenda for this evening's virtual meeting. We'll hear the opening statements from District 1 Deputy Director Richard Mullen. Project Manager Karen Coonrod will give us a project overview and an update on the project. We'll also hear from Lorna McFarland, who is the Coastal Liaison, and we'll also have time at the end for questions. But let's begin tonight's presentation with Richard Mullen. Good evening, Richard.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks, Manny. Appreciate that. As mentioned, my name is Richard Mullen. I'm the Deputy District Director for Caltrans. I just want to welcome everybody. Some of you, I see familiar names out there, and it's good to see you. As staff knows, I like to meet face-to-face, but there have been benefits for these virtual meetings that we're able to reach out to people in remote areas sometimes where they have to travel quite a distance, so we can reach a larger group of people, mass of people, I should say, which makes for what I want to talk about first is engagement with people from all aspects of the area. It's important to get feedback on the projects that we are working on. The people that live in the area are the ones that know a lot about the facility. We have staff that are designing projects that could be in Sacramento area, from Eureka to Marysville, but the people in the community are the ones that know the ins and outs. So that's where your input is so valuable. Last spring, we finalized the environmental document, and at that meeting, I talked about the importance of bringing Caltrans to the Mendocino coast. And we are actively doing that right now. You may see Jamie's face out there more and more at other public meetings, and I plan on joining also. But at that last meeting, right before we had finalized the environmental document, we had some great feedback that we took back. The team has taken things into consideration and fine-tuned things as we move forward. That is an iterative process, and it will continue on. We also committed to having this meeting here with the public to go over the next major step, and that was for the coastal development permit. So there is a coastal hearing coming up in November, and we're going to hear more about that later from Lorna. She'll go over what the role is for the public to comment on at that point. I want to take a minute just to talk about our mission. Our mission is provide a safe, reliable transportation network that serves all people and respects the environment. And I always like to put this in perspective of just replace a few words. So in this case, provide a safe and reliable Jack Peters Bridge that serves all the people, especially the Mendocino County. So I want to emphasize the beauty of the Mendocino coast. We're very fortunate to have this district that we live in. I like driving up to Del Norte County. I like Humboldt County, but the Mendocino coastline is amazing. We're fortunate to be able to travel there. You're fortunate to live in the area. And as mentioned before, we're always balancing the improvements that we do with the environment. And it's tough. It's a good problem to have. So I want to emphasize that's always a priority of Caltrans, is to balance both of those. Now, safety comes first. So before I move forward and we turn it over to the presentation, I want to emphasize that no matter what type of traffic control or closure there is, that accommodations are always in place to assure emergency response vehicles can get through the job site. That is a high priority, and that is a goal, and we do on every job. So with that, I would like to just get moving on with the presentation. I want to introduce the new project manager, Karen Coonrod. Karen.
Thank you, Richard. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah. See my blue box. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Karen Coonrod. I am the new project manager for the Jack Peters Creek Bridge project. And when I began reviewing this project, one of the first things I noticed was that this bridge connects the neighboring communities. So tonight, I would like to discuss the potential for temporary night work and the long-term benefits this project will have on your community by providing a safe route to schools, residential areas, and the community. Good, thanks, Manny. So the Jack Peters Creek Bridge was built in 1938. Existing shoulders are approximately 1 foot wide. Pedestrian and cyclists must share the lane with vehicles. The railing is too low for pedestrians and bicyclists. The existing bridge rail does not meet our current crash testing standards, and there have been numerous advances in safety standards since this bridge was constructed to improve both performance and safety for the traveling public. So Caltrans' highest priority is safety, and Caltrans aims to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries by taking a realistic and holistic view of safety for all road users, including those who walk, bike, drive, ride transit, or travel by other modes. This project proposes to make safety improvements to State Route 1, which is part of the designated Pacific Coast Bike Route and the California Coastal Trail. Proposed safety improvements include widening the bridge for a 6-foot separated pedestrian walkway along the west side of the bridge, adding 6-foot shoulders to provide a designated space for cyclists and a recoverable area for vehicles. See-through barrier rails that meet current safety standards would be installed. This image shows the existing bridge rail adjacent to the lane. Thank you. So this photo simulation of the same view shows the proposed concrete bridge rail 6 feet from the lane and the separated pedestrian walkway on the west side. The proposed bridge rail meets the most recent standards adopted by Caltrans, which was developed after years of studies, testing, and experience in traffic safety systems. So we are proposing to allow optional temporary night closures for the bridge widening work. There is very limited space for the large equipment that's needed to construct the project. Full closures would increase worker safety, increase safety for the traveling public, minimize environmental impacts, and reduce overall delays to traffic and construction. All emergency response agencies must have access to State Route 1 throughout construction. We would work with the emergency services to develop a plan and notification system to minimize delays. We want to ensure the contractor and emergency services are prepared to respond to incidents without delays. The contractor would be required to prepare an emergency response access plan and contingency plan. These plans would require the contractor to coordinate with local emergency service agencies for advanced incident notification. The contractor would be required to have procedures in place to clear the lane and allow emergency services to pass through the project quickly and safely. If full night closures are allowed, we are anticipating the closures would occur in the summer of 2024. We would expect a maximum of 31 full closures, with closures occurring up to 5 consecutive nights. Closures would be allowed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday night through Friday morning, and holidays would be excluded from night closures. If the contractor performs work at night, the following measures would be implemented. Noise from activities would not exceed 86 decibels 50 feet from the job site from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And lighting is mandated by Cal OSHA for worker safety. Lighting would be directed at the work activities. Now I'd like to discuss the project schedule, starting with an update on the environmental permit. All permit applications have been submitted. We are currently coordinating with the agencies to ensure all applications are deemed complete. We expect to have all permits issued by January 2023. And Lorna will follow up in this presentation with discussion on the coastal permit. The project delivery schedule. So the plans have been submitted for the district safety review and constructability review. We expect the project to advertise in April of 2023. Vegetation clearing would begin in the fall of 2023. And construction is expected to start in spring of 2024 and continue until fall of 2025. I will now hand the presentation over to Lorna. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. So we know there's particular interest in the CDP process, so we're addressing it individually. The CDP application was deemed complete by the Coastal Commission, and staff are working hard to complete the staff report now. The Commission staff has the goal of getting the project on the agenda for the November 16th through 18th hearing, which will be held in Salinas, California. As always, there will be an option to attend this meeting virtually. For more information on the hearing, to view the hearing agenda, and to sign up to speak when it posts, please visit the Coastal Commission website. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Jamie Mattioli.
Thank you so much, Lorna and Karen, for the presentation. And we hope that presentation was helpful. Just like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded, and the last meeting has been posted on the website for Jack Peters, and this presentation, this whole meeting will be posted as well, so you can view any of these answers at your leisure at home. And for this question and answer session, we would just ask people to please raise your hand, and Manny's going to write down the order as best he can, and then we'll call on you and ask people to please leave your question to less than 3 minutes, just so we can hear from as many people as possible. So yeah, please welcome people to please raise your hands now. If you have any questions or any comments, welcome those now. Manny,
Yeah,
are you
please.
we're
Yeah, I was
seeing
going to
some
say,
hands.
please raise your hand, and then also you can ask a question in the chat. So you can post your question there, and we will answer it.
Thank you so much. I see a chat from Kathy. I support this project. Thanks so much for your comment, Kathy. Manny, I'm seeing a group of people with hands raised. Should I start with John Hayes? Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so I'd like to invite John Hayes, please.
Couple
Go ahead.
questions. One, what does advertise in 2023 mean?
I'd like to direct that to Karen.
Sure. Hi, John. So the project is, we're expecting to have the contract prepared in early 2023. So as soon as we get it into contract form, it would go out to advertise, and we're expecting that to happen in this spring.
Okay. And the follow-up is there any tangible examples of what 86 decibels is like 50 feet from the work site?
I wonder if anybody on the construction team might know that one. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, I agree.
This is Jeff Wright with Caltrans Construction. I'm the area construction engineer for Mendocino County. And I don't know what it is, but our conversation is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 65 decibels right now. To put it in perspective, pile driving, that usually is about 110 decibels. So most construction equipment chimes in at around 90 decibels. So if you drive past a paving operation while you're driving down the road and you hear that equipment, that's usually in the neighborhood of 90, 91 decibels. So maybe that gives you a little perspective. I don't know if that helps you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you for that question. We are going to go to next with Mark Jensen. Give it to Mark.
So why are you guys not doing a protected bike lane across that? We've had several deaths from folks with distracted driving, and I'm concerned that, this bridge improvement is great, but having people vulnerable across that section, puts people in the line of fire for all the distracted driving that we have these days. And how come we're not putting a barrier in place there?
Karen, maybe you could talk about that. And Manny, we have some previous simulations. Mark, I don't know if you're able to see the presentation, but we might be able to clear that up. I'll leave it to you, Karen.
Sure. I think we all share your concern, Mark. I would say that would make the bridge wider. I guess it's one concern we have as far as we still need to provide some shoulder space for drivers. Yeah, thanks, Manny. I would say the cyclists can use the pedestrian walkway. They would be required to walk their bike across the bridge, but that is, that would be the option.
Boy, it doesn't seem like you're following the design guidance of making everything more bicycle friendly these days. It seems like you're, you haven't quite done the job there.
Would you speak, Karen, to the improvements for cyclists? Like what's the existing condition and what's the condition post-construction?
Kill or be killed on that bridge. Yeah, and they're making a 6-foot lane. But now this guy wants a barrier between the traffic and the bike. But I mean, they don't have a barrier on either end of it.
Well, if we're investing over $10 million in this thing for future work between the town of Mendocino and the town of Fort Bragg, it seems like we ought to start on the best foot rather than something that's less than adequate.
Sure, come on. All the NIMBYs came out.
So we would ask that people mute unless you're asking a question. And Mark, I really appreciate the question and the comment. And I was hoping, Karen, maybe you could just speak to, you know, what is the condition now, and then what would the condition be after construction?
Yeah, so the existing shoulder width really varies 0 to 1 foot based on the existing striped condition. So we are definitely at least improving the width to a 6 feet, 12-foot lanes with a 6-foot shoulder, and then the 6-foot separated pedestrian walkway. And the shoulders are on both sides of the bridge. So, you know, so for northbound and southbound cyclists, they would have a 6-foot shoulder.
So Karen, this is Jeff Wright to try to help you in a response a little bit. Again, I'm the area construction engineer for Mendocino County with Caltrans. The majority of Route 1 has essentially no shoulder for its existence through Mendocino County. So from my opinion, I think we're making a vast improvement here by adding a 6-foot shoulder. The Mendocino County coastal concept for this route only allows 4-foot shoulders when any improvements are made anywhere else. So we're making a larger than what the coastal concept report really allows. So I think we're making a vast improvement over what is there. I hear Mark's concern, and I know he may have a desire for a separate pedestrian, a protected bicycle route. But yeah, I'm not sure we have the ability budget-wise, or, you know, just as Karen said, it would make the bridge a lot wider. And, you know, maybe there's room for discussion about allowing the bicyclists to ride through the pedestrian pathway or something. I'm not sure. That's really beyond my wheelhouse, but for what it's worth, I think we're making a vast improvement over what most of the Route 1 is. And so I think this is a great iterative improvement myself.
Thank you, Jeff. I think, Mark, are there any other thoughts or comments? We can move to the next question.
It still seems inadequate, but
okay.
I'll provide some written comment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question and comments, Mark. Manny, who's next?
Yeah, our next question comes from Anne Marie. Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Lots of questions. Why were only 20 people notified when we don't even know where the project starts and ends? And also, there is other areas where equipment will be stored and people will be driving back and forward, so it affects a huge community. We weren't told about the Sanders Landing offsite habitat mitigation. The LCP requires a 100-foot buffer, but there's only 5 feet available next to the bridge. The biological resources mitigation is not sufficient. Where's the compensatory visual mitigation report for this project? Noya Bridge used the railing and also 10 Mile Bridge, and I ask you to look into that. The Coastal Commission did. We're not happy with Midwest Guardrail System. This project is not subordinate to the character of the settings as required by the Coastal Act. Do not use decorative pedestrian railing painted blue and have context sensitivity with tribal patterns. have an acceptable view. And type 85 concrete bridge is at least 3 foot 6 inches tall and hinders the view. The supervisors of this county talked at length about the guardrail and want for the Coastal Commission to have input. No photos show the devastation to the canopy on the east side. The aesthetics mitigation is not sufficient and very vague. And the community doesn't know about the staging areas. There's also additional area for lead waste that should be used at the Salmon Creek Sandblast lead waste area, which is ridiculous. The hazards and hazardous material mitigation is not acceptable in terms of the lead issue. And to widen the road by 17 foot when 4 foot shoulders would be good enough. And then having to go around Little Lake Road 408, 409 for the public and take twice as long if there's an emergency is not acceptable for those 31 nights. And so even the roadway approaches would cut down 150 trees. Don't place the PG&E power line over ground, put them underground. And the trestle can be notched into the hillside to prevent a lot of noise. And okay, no striping and round raised pavement markers because of noise issues. And so why is the coastal trail not continued on the south and the north? Revegetation plan issues have not been followed in the past.
Anne-Marie, Anne-Marie, can I
yes.
ask, it's a lot of really good points, a lot of really good questions. It's you've spoken for more than 3 minutes. We want to make sure everyone has a chance. Could you please send us those written comments and questions and we can respond? And then I'd also like to ask. Okay, we've received those. And then
yes.
is there any 1 or 2 items there that you would like to hear a response on tonight?
It's just, you need an EIR. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
An MND is not good enough.
Okay, Anne-Marie.
A lot of things are very vague and not correct. And so I'd like to request another meeting that people are really notified about, not only 20 people, before the Coastal Commission hearing.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Really appreciate your comments, written and verbal. Appreciate the thought that went into those. And just asking Manny real quick, can you speak to, or is there anyone who can speak to the amount of noticing that went into this meeting, please? Could you speak to that?
Yeah. Here we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, we did send out in the project area a flyer notification to residents of this meeting tonight. Also on our Facebook page, social media, Twitter, we did also post with a flyer information for this meeting tonight. So it was well publicized for this meeting.
Thank you, Manny. We do appreciate we have a really good number here tonight. I don't have a count of Caltrans people, but there's 39 participants. Really appreciate the attendance here. So thank you so much again, Anne-Marie and Manny. Who's our next question, please?
Yeah, I hope I get the name right. Karis Markovich.
Yes, Karis Markovich. Thank you
Sorry
very
about that.
much. I submitted questions to you, and most of them you can just answer me. But I'll ask a couple now off of my list. For one thing, I live in Surfwood Estates, which is right by the bridge. And when we leave Surfwood Estates, I'm a little concerned about being able to get out on Highway 1. I'm wondering if there will be anybody directing traffic for us during high traffic times so that we'll be able to turn left or right out of our neighborhood. That's one of my questions.
Let's start with that, please. Karen, or maybe Jeff would be the best person for that. What do you think?
I can touch on it briefly, and then I would hand it over maybe to traffic ops. I was going to say that we are expecting to have a temporary signal system in place, and so access out of the side roads would always be available. And when there is a flagger, I would expect the flagger to be flagging the intersections. And I see Jane, I don't know if Sherry, but if somebody from traffic ops would like to speak on this, that would be really great.
Hi, this is Jane Nordstrom with Traffic Operations. So we have designed the project. We expect the contractor to maintain that access to any side roads that might be within the temporary signal system. And then if they are controlling the traffic with by flagging, or you have a stop flagger, then they may have, depending on where they place the stop flagger, they may have a flagger at one of your side streets. It depends on how long they make that closure for the type of work that they're doing. So it could vary. But I think the key here is that, you know, we will maintain access to any side roads so that you can get out to to Highway 1.
Well, I would assume that we'd be able to get out. It's just a matter of how long before we can get out, you know, how long we'll be sitting there waiting for, you know, that one-way traffic to go by. So I hope you look more into that for our community. You talk a lot about safety. I'd like to talk a little bit about pedestrian safety. I was very excited when several years ago when I learned you were going to build a pedestrian access portion of this bridge. But I'm not excited anymore because I realize once I step off of that bridge, I can't go anywhere. It's very, you can't walk down Lansing Street. You take your life in your hands if you walk down Lansing Street to try to get to town. There's no safe access. So if you talk about safety, that's a big issue for us. It's also not safe to walk down Highway 1. And I realize that you don't have any purview over Lansing Street, but I'm wondering, do you have purview over Highway 1? And could you improve the pedestrian access from the bridge, from the pedestrian bridge to the light in Mendocino so that we can use the pedestrian bridge to get to town? I mean, that's the whole purpose of a bridge, is to be able to cross over and go somewhere, like you said, have access, better access for the communities. And right now, this doesn't provide that. Can somebody speak to that? I mean, have you tried walking from the bridge to town? That would be the first start, maybe, to try yourself and see what you think.
This is
Any of you.
This is Jamie. I haven't tried that. I don't know if any of our team members have tried it. I will say that the concept for the whole route, Jeff spoke to this, is when it's fully built out, we would have 4-foot shoulders on the highway. And on bridges, we would have 6 foot. On most bridges, some bridges, we could have up to 8 foot. So the concept fully built out would be 4-foot shoulders. Karen, could you speak? I know you've studied the shoulders to the north and south. Can you kind of talk about what's out there right now?
Yeah, so I will just say I'm very new to this project and I have not looked that far, but the project is conforming. So the bridge would conform to existing 4-foot shoulders. I don't know how far north and south of the project those 4-foot shoulders continue, but like Jamie said, that is the concept, 4-foot shoulders. And I will just say this project, you know, it is specific for making bridge improvement, but the state is investing in pedestrian and bike infrastructure. So I would say there's more projects to come. And I would certainly say if you know of an area that needs improvement, you can always, make a recommendation, submit a recommendation to Caltrans.
Well, I've done that in the last meeting, and I was told it's absolutely not going to be done. Okay, they said it's not in the purview of this project. So I would ask that you take a look at it, since you're the new project manager, and, find out what you think. I wouldn't tout safety for pedestrians and all this improvement for the community to get places until you've looked at it to see, if that's really true. So I would appreciate that, you spend some time and check into that. And maybe if we have another meeting, you could have an answer for that. That would be helpful. But I had several other questions, and like I said, if you could just answer those, but I will make another comment. I'm still concerned about the emergency access, and you're providing absolutely no detour, and it's going to be closed all night. And I don't know how you expect people to move from Mendocino to Fort Bragg if they have an emergency and need to go in their car. And, is at one point somebody said it would be closed for only 15 minutes to move equipment. And I'm wondering, if that's really is true. I heard you say something about they would be supposed to be able to move them quickly through the bridge, but you really need to define quickly. I mean, what's quickly? Is that 15 minutes, or will it take them an hour to move their equipment off the bridge? I know at one point they were going to need 1 hour complete closures to move equipment around and materials around. I heard that's off the table now, other than, nighttime closures. I don't know if that's still true or not, but anyway, I'm still concerned about emergency access and really in general, just access. I mean, people do go downtown Mendocino, and they're there after 10 and they need to be able to get home. Maybe they need to get to Fort Bragg or further north. And, there's no detour that y'all are going to provide people, and people won't know how to do that 409 route, which is not really that great of a route. So I think you need to work on this some more.
Thank you, Carice. Karen, do you want to speak to that any further details, or just validating the 15 minutes maximum during the night, or anything else you want to add to that, Karen?
Yeah, I would just say that we would be working with the contractor and the emergency service agencies to really develop a plan that works for all of the emergency services. How do we get those notifications? Because the sooner the contractor gets notified of an emergency situation, they can begin clearing the lane. So we don't want to have it where the emergency service or whoever's in need gets to the bridge and we have to begin clearing the bridge. So it's just that early notification and working with the agencies. Again, we would try to have a very robust public outreach so that everyone knows well in advance when these closures are happening, what night, getting that information out to the public so that everybody is aware and hopefully working together. This is, we want it to be safe. We want it to be safe for the workers. We want it to be safe for everyone. And we certainly don't want anyone getting injured during construction or if they have an emergency, at home or off site, wherever, and needing to get through. So that's very, very important. And we're just continuing to develop, and we really need to have the contractor on board to work out a plan. And I would just say, if the contractor cannot provide a plan, we would have ways to put restrictions on the contractor. So it needs to be reasonable.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'd like to just remind everyone that, if you do have comments, they could also be shared at the coastal hearing, any comments about the project. Really appreciate that. Carice and Manny, I think looking at the time here, it'd be good to get to, I see three other hands raised here and some questions in the chat.
Yeah, we do have a question in the chat. Will there be a posted detour for the traffic during the road closure? And that was from Linda.
Karen, you can get that one, please.
Yeah, no, we would not have a posted detour.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that there is an alternate route. So I'm sure the emergency services are aware of it, but we would not be directing traffic around the project.
Thank you, Karen. Manny, should we go to the chat or to the next person with their hand raised? Who's next?
Let's do one more chat and then we'll get back to the questions from Jessica. Will we be sent the slides from today? Well, I can say that from the PIO standpoint, we will. This meeting has been recorded, and we will upload it to the Caltrans page, to the web page for Jack Peters Creek Bridge, and also on our Caltrans YouTube page, so you can view the meeting and look at the slides, and we can also accommodate for you with those slides if needed. And with that, our next question is from Walter.
Okay, thank you. From Gail and I here. So we did also submit some questions before the meeting, and we're happy to have those answered offline. I would like to, I think we both would like to emphasize a couple points. Number one, our house is that house that you see in the picture there, right above the bridge. We'd certainly like to welcome Karen to the project and really invite Karen to come out and visit us here, and have a look, a bird's eye view directly above the bridge. We've actually mounted a camera up in the very peak of our house there, overlooking the bridge, and plan to actually provide a bird's eye view of the whole project from beginning to end, and all the aspects of it. And we're hoping actually to have that available for people to view online in real time, so they can see what's going on. As far as the safety goes, again, we'd like to, I think this is the most important part to us. Again, Richard emphasized this in the mission of Caltrans, and I think we're certainly, even though this is going to be very disruptive for us, we're certainly supportive of progress. I mean, we are concerned about first of all that. I think as we brought this up at the CTC meeting, that the bridge, when and Carice, talked about this as well, when you come off the bridge, either as a pedestrian or on a bike, you were either, dumped onto Lansing Avenue or decide to continue on Highway 1. There would be a tendency to go on to Lansing Avenue. And I think the people coming across the bridge by bike or on foot who are looking to stay on the coastal trail are going to stay on that route, because the coastal trail, of course, picks up again, a half a mile later down Easter Lane. So, but the problem is what happens is you're dumped onto this street that has no shoulder and no protection. And now that we've got a much widened bridge, and again, this is in the questions I asked, now that we've got a much widened bridge, there's going to be a tendency for people to come across that bridge on the traffic, the vehicular traffic, to be traveling faster going south, and potentially to turn right on Lansing Avenue and catch either a pedestrian or bicyclist in this area that's very dangerous, where there's no shoulder. So it seems like there needs to be a linkage between this project and some accommodation for what happens to folks coming off of the bridge, either on foot or by bicycle. So, and we'd like to see that addressed, whether it's coordination with the county, whether it's, improvements along Highway 1, as Carice suggested, but something along those lines that, I think is a forward-thinking approach to address that. As far as, the nighttime closures, I mean, I'm a critical care physician and by trade, and recognize the critical importance of time. If you're having a heart attack or a stroke, the critical importance of time of getting you into an emergency room, for example, to get thrombolytics or whatever is required. And, these proposed 15 or 20-minute delays, can be very critical for that kind of a situation. And again, that's only during construction, and the previous safety concern I was talking about is a more of a long-term issue after construction, where people are going to be coming across by bicycle or on foot and going to run into this no man's land where they're not protected from traffic, which may be coming at them very quickly. And I'm concerned about some kid, just on a bicycle, getting ahead of his parents a little bit, and bada bing, bada bang, they're out on Lansing Avenue, and somebody is coming across that bridge pretty quickly, turning right on Lansing and running into that kid. So I think that needs to be thought through carefully. And again, I emphasize that as our primary concern. And otherwise, I think that some of these things, whatever was 86 decibels is loud noise, at 50 feet. Hopefully, by the time it gets to us at 200 feet, it's much less than that and tolerable at night and not going to be an issue for us. It'll be good to have people, like Karen and Jamie and others, available, if there is a problem, if there is a problem with the contractor, if there's a problem with excessive noise, that we have someone to be able to go to and contact and interact with, to address problems, ongoing through the project. The last thing is that
just if you could kind of wrap it up quick, we want to make sure we get to the other comments. And
yeah, thank you. The last thing is just regarding the pile driving. Again, we had a previous agreement, and I think Jeff knows about this too, not to do any pile driving. And if there's going to be any need for piers, that there'll be drilled piers. So, and I just want to make sure that gets into the contractor list of stipulations when this goes out to contract.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Walter. And one of the benefits of recording is we could watch that back. There's a lot of good info in there. Walter, a lot of good comments. And thank you, and Gail, for the invitation, for Karen. And the questions are acknowledged about looking at the holistic, the highway, not just at this project, but further south, and looking at the county connections and identifying what's going on, if anything, what's planned for the future. So really good questions. I really appreciate them, and acknowledge the concerns about the emergency response wait times. Karen, do you have any response to any of those? Or team?
I don't have anything to add. I do appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I see a couple hands raised, and we're getting close. We do want to end this meeting on time. We want to honor your time. Manny, who's next?
Yeah, we have a question from Mary Walsh. There's a coastal access trail under the bridge. Will this trail be improved? A stairway, perhaps? I'm very concerned about the number of trees proposed to be removed.
Karen?
I'd like to defer to Derek or somebody from design. I know we talked about briefly this coastal trail, and I think, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. Could you speak on this, Derek?
Yeah. So the bridge sidewalk is going to terminate at the end of the bridge. A few feet beyond that, and there's going to be a guardrail. But the coastal access trail will not even be improved. It'll be accessible. When we do our construction, we're still trying to determine how to reform the footpath that is there at the moment. So we need to get surveys out there and actually put surveys to the footpath that's been out there. I don't know if you would actually call that a trail or what it is, but it's not ADA compliant by no means, and how we would reestablish it. So again, we need to send surveys out there to identify it specifically, the one that's under the bridge.
Thank you, Derek. Manny, a couple more questions?
Yeah, next hand raised is from Stephanie Dahl.
Thank you. I'm going to go through my questions very quickly and hopefully there will be responses to them. The first has to do with a comment made earlier with respect to the width of the bike lane, the lack of protection. And the first question I have with respect to that is that I've done a lot of public access ways on flat land without other encumbrances requiring no physical construction. And seldom have they been required to be 6 feet wide. And it would seem, everything else being equal, that there should be some way of taking that space and providing enough room for pedestrians while providing a safe lane for bicyclists. And I would hope that someone in design can address that. With respect to the closures, if someone would please enumerate the pieces of equipment that will be in usage on these particular nights, the type of equipment and the number of pieces, where will those pieces of equipment be moved in case of an emergency? And how long will it take to relocate them, having been involved with the movement of heavy equipment in the midst of construction? That's something that has not really been addressed in any of the estimates that have been provided so far. What happens to the through traffic when it approaches the bridge closure between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Where will that be turned around? How early will people receive notice that they're not going to be able to go any further? And is there a map of whatever the alternative route that was mentioned is located? Finally, with respect to project limits, there seems to be some confusion as to what those are. There is a road plan that indicates that the work begins at milepost 51 and ends at 52.4. Is that the full extent of the project limit? The reason this question is particularly important, aside from ingress and egress to the town of Mendocino and for the people who live north of the bridge as well, is that the project description indicates that Caltrans permit applications that have all been filed so far do not take into account any permitting that will be required for the additional staging areas for equipment and material storage outside the project limits. Assuming that this outside the project limits remains in the coastal zone, it will require a coastal development permit or permits, depending on how many locations are used. Contractors typically are not the best agents for procuring such things, but if they are going to be required to get their own permitting, it would seem that those applications should be on file, and the project descriptions, the actual locations. I know there's a reference in the project description to the post office site, but that's not the only one, and that has its own impacts as well. So having that addressed would be particularly helpful. Also, if the project extends into the town of Mendocino, knowing what that extent is would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think with the short amount of time left, we'll track those. We can get responses, but could we speak to the construction ones? I think that Jeff could speak to those, please. The movement of equipment and that sort of thing.
So to address the movement of equipment, it's a little bit unknown exactly what equipment will be used, and with a few assumptions. I think the things that we're talking about when we have the full closures is the contractor would likely be staging a crane or a concrete pump or some other piece of equipment that is hydraulically actuated. And the discussions that we've been having at this point and the assumptions are that probably within 15 to 20 minutes, we could have that equipment retracted enough to be able to pass that emergency vehicle. That's been the flavor of the discussion that we've had so far. And I think that, under most conditions, that is probably a very plausible expectation to meet.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And we do have another couple minutes. I wonder if Derek or maybe Karen could speak to the bike lane width if that if you understood the question. I think now Stephanie, can I just reiterate it, please, and make sure I got it right? Could the bike lane be narrower and shared with pedestrians? Is that the question?
No, it isn't. You've got 12 feet there. And 6 of those feet are dedicated to pedestrians who apparently have a barrier to protect them from bicyclists. I don't think the pedestrians who go across that bridge are nearly as threatened as the bicyclists who have zero protection.
Oh, I see.
If there's going to be a 12-foot span in that area, it seems to me that it could be reallocated so that there would be room for the barrier for the bicyclists who are more plentiful than pedestrians on the one hand, and certainly more exposed in this location.
Got it. So could you speak to the use of the lanes and the use of the shoulders? What are the safety benefits of 6-foot shoulders on a bridge? And then what is that protected width of the pedestrian way? Maybe Derek or Karen, could you speak to that?
Yeah, so I'll just say, so again, we have the 6-foot pedestrian walkway and 6-foot shoulders and 2 12-foot lanes. That's the design. I think what I'm kind of hearing, maybe I'm just making this up, but to correct me, are you kind of thinking like make the protected area like a path, like a class 1 bikeway where you'd have 2 ways of traffic on one side? Say rather than 6 feet, make it 10 feet? Or I don't know why I'm thinking, that's kind of where my head went. So
I'm not. The shoulder is also described as the bikeway. And that does not make for a safe bicycling experience. The shoulder may be better than having no shoulder and no bikeway, but it seems to me that with all that space, on the one side, that is to say on the seaward side, one ought to be able to come up with a way of even mixing the pedestrian and cycling uses that provides some protection to the bicyclists.
Understood. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It is 6:31. Manny, were there any other hands raised that we did not get to?
No, 2 minutes left. You started late.
We did start a few minutes late. That's a good comment. Were there any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, there was a question in the chat from Marilyn, and she wants to know, have you done any studies to quantify the number of cars that cross the bridge during the hours you plan to have complete closures?
I think Jane could speak to that, please, if possible.
Hi, Jamie. This is Paul Haley in Work Zone Ops. I can take this one.
Thank you, Paul.
We have traffic volumes that we've collected historically, and we have them graphed in our own files. We're looking at about say 100 vehicles per hour around 10 p.m. down to about a dozen or so at 6 a.m. It's do I need to be more specific than that?
No, I think that's perfect, Paul. That's the estimate for those times. Thank you so much. Manny, any other questions, please?
Yeah, we talked about it, but Mark Jensen in the chat, the protected areas should include both bikes and peds. This is a short bridge. Cars can roll a short distance and do not require a shoulder in this short section.
Karen did share earlier that bikes can walk their bicycle on that pedestrian walkway. There's no problem with that. It is 6:33. We got started right at 5:33. We just want to thank everyone again for attending, for your questions, for your attention. A reminder that any comments can be shared with us in writing, and also comments can be shared for the coastal permit hearing coming up hopefully in November. And again, this meeting was recorded. We'll post it on the web. We want to commit to continuing to meet with you on a quarterly basis. And just really appreciate that you all are showing up. So thanks again for meeting with us tonight. I look forward to meeting with you in the future, and just want to wish everyone a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just a quick question. When will the questions be answered and in what format?
So questions over email. Let us work with the team to get a date together. I don't have the ability to get a date to you right now, but we'll look at what we have and see what it is, and we'll find out how long it takes, and we'll commit to getting you a date within the next month. And that's not answers, but that's how long it takes, and hopefully it's faster than that. So again, good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Hopefully before the Coastal Commission meeting. That would be really helpful.
Oh, appreciate that comment. Good comment.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.